of April 17th, 2024.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Benitez and Mr. Rufner. And Ms. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Axiotis,
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner.
Yes.
Both pass 5-0.
All right, item 9, public hearing. This would be ordinance 2024-19. And our sponsors are councilpersons Axiotis, Rufner, Benitez, and Persino. And this is an ordinance authorizing interim city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase a 2024 Ford F-550 from Charshone Ford Lincoln and upfit it with equipment from Quality Truck Body for use by the maintenance department. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Oh, this is just a hearing.
Public hearing.
This is just a hearing.
Just a hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
Move on to the next one.
Go to the next hearing.
All right. Ordinance 2024-20, which is sponsored by councilpersons Rufner, Stempert, and Axiotis. And this is an ordinance amending sections 121.01E of the codified ordinance relating to the time required for public notice of special council meetings. Next is ordinance 2024-21. And this is an ordinance amending sections 12.03M of the codified ordinance relating to public and closing comments at emergency council meetings. And finally, 10 would be unfinished business. And that would be ordinance 2024-19, sponsored by councilpersons Axiotis, Rufner, Benitez, and Persino. And this is an ordinance authorizing interim city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase a 2024 Ford F-550 from Charshone Ford Lincoln and upfit it with equipment from Quality Truck Body for use by the maintenance department.
I'll make the motion to move.
I'll second it.
Ms. Stimpert and Mr. Axiotis.
Discussion? Please.
I know there's public comments about this vehicle just a little bit ago. I believe it's always been for the maintenance department. I believe there was one we had just authorized for the water department prior, which I think there's some confusion on.
Correct. The first one was for the wastewater department. This one was put into the budget for the maintenance department. It will be used for for everything they do, from plowing to salting to hauling anything that they need to haul. As I stated in the discussion last meeting as well, this is replacing a 1993 International that was placed on the disposal list, as well as I discussed previously, even with the mild winter that we had, between that truck that is being disposed of and the other couple vehicles that they have, and the mild winter we had, we still were in the area of $10,000 in repairs to those vehicles. So we've gotten our use out of the truck that it's replacing. And this one, again, hope to see it last every bit of 20-plus years, and it should.
Thank you.
Next, we have ordinance, oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Ms. Stimpert,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Mr. Exiotis,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Ms. Benitez.
Yes.
Pass 5-0.
Yes.
Go ahead, now you
Oh,
can
okay, I thought you had something to add. All right, next we have ordinance 2024-20. The sponsors are councilpersons Rufner, Stimpert, and Axiotis. This is an ordinance amending section 121.01E of the codified ordinance relating to the time required for public notice of special council meetings.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Exiotis and Ms. Benitez.
Any discussion? We'll call the roll.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Ms. Benitez,
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Mr. Exiotis.
Yes.
Pass 5-0.
Next, we have ordinance 2024-21. The sponsors are councilpersons Rufner, Stimpert, and Axiotis. This is an ordinance amending sections 121.03M of the codified ordinances relating to public and closing comments at emergency council meetings. Did I just read this one?
No.
No, okay.
It's different. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any
Ms.
discussion?
Stimpert and Mr. Exiotis.
No discussion? All right, let's do the roll.
Ms. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Exiotis,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
and Ms. Stimpert.
Yes.
Pass 5-0.
All right, item 11, and this is new business. This is ordinance 2024-24. Sponsors are councilpersons Rufner and Axiotis. This is an ordinance authorizing certain amendments to the appropriations for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and also authorizing the finance director to amend and file a certificate of resources with the county auditor.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Rufner and Mr. Exiotis.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Exiotis,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Ms. Benitez,
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert.
Yes.
Pass 5-0.
Next, we're going to move on to ordinance 2024-25. And sponsors here are councilpersons Rufner and Axiotis. This is an emergency ordinance providing the execution of a purchase order for Aclara Technologies LLC for the annual maintenance fee for software that benefits the utility departments.
I'll make the motion.
Okay?
Mr. Exiotis and Mr. Rufner.
Is there any discussion?
Mayor?
Please.
To answer the earlier question as to why this is showing up as emergency, As stated, this is from the 23-24 year. So this is a bill that should have been paid last year. It was not. So regardless of the fact, we need to get this paid. We're in basically the borderline of breach of contract. This is a maintenance and service agreement for the software. If we don't pay this and get it paid before our next one is due in June, we're effectively in breach of contract. So that drives the emergency on this one. You'll notice the follow-on does not have the emergency because that is normal billing cycle. So if that helps to answer the question as to why this is being presented as emergency.
Mr. Axiotis?
I don't know if I have much to add other than my understanding is one of the reasons why it wasn't paid was they were trying to negotiate it to be lower. I don't know where that was left. Seems like it just stopped or the ball was dropped, and we're just trying to clean it up, basically.
May I have?
Yes, please, Julie.
Can I just reiterate Mr. Wanawantu's question of, are they working? Are we having, I mean, like, I have them at my house, I don't notice any issue, but like, is there overall?
The program is working. The program is what takes the readings and uploads it and then generates the utility bills. And it's the software program that's running the whole system that the utility department does to generate the bills and calculates everything.
All right, let's move on to ordinance.
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute. We do a,
Vote.
let's do our vote then.
Mr. Axiotis,
yes.
Ms. Benitez,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
and Ms. Stemper.
Yes.
And this requires a second reading.
So read it again.
Second reading.
All right. Ordinance 20-25.
No.
This, no,
2024-25.
yeah, sorry about that. 2024-25. It's an emergency ordinance approving the execution of a purchase order to Aclara Technologies LLC for the annual maintenance fee for software that benefits the utility department.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Call the
Mr.
roll.
Axiotis, Ms. Benitez. Discussion. And Mr. Axiotis,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Ms. Stemper,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Ms. Benitez.
Yes.
Pass 5-0. Both times.
All right, now we'll move on to ordinance 2024-26. This is an ordinance approving the execution of a purchase order to Aclara Technologies LLC for the annual maintenance fee for software that benefits the utility departments. Did I?
I'll make
Okay,
the
this-
motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Benitez and Mr. Axiotis.
Any discussion? Well, let's roll.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Ms. Stemper,
Yes.
Ms. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Axiotis.
Yes.
Pass 5-0.
Next, we have ordinance 2024-27. Sponsors are Councilperson Stempert and Axiotis. And it's an emergency ordinance establishing a moratorium on the issuance of building permits and/or certificates of occupancy for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable cultivation, process, or retail sale of recreational marijuana.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Benitez and Mr. Axiotis.
Any discussion?
Mr. Axiotis?
Please.
While I did sponsor this ordinance, one of the reasons I did and why it's on here is because there was some concern from planning and zoning about the sale of recreational marijuana. Personally, I do not support this ordinance, but I figured it's worthy of discussion. I've lived in this town my whole life, pushing 50 years. It was easier to get pot in this town than it was to get cigarettes, and it still is to this day. The fact that overwhelmingly the populace voted to legalize marijuana, that's the will of the people, that's what the people wanted, passed over 60%. I think by us outlawing it, all it does is continue to have the pot seller next door that everyone goes to buy marijuana. 20 years ago, when I lived in a township, my neighbors were murdered because he was a pot dealer. If you don't want people to have a legal option, you're going to just continue to have the illegal options, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't support this, but it's worthy of discussion, and we should talk about it. But that's my stance on it.
May I have an address?
Yes, please.
So, I'm a sponsor as well, and my reason for sponsoring this, and I had spoken to Limby on numerous occasions, was the unknown. I know just yesterday, something that had been working on for 8 months, what the change in, what is it, tier 3 or tier 1, I don't know how that goes, had just came out. So my reasoning for supporting this at this time is for all the unknowns. What is the government going to say the criteria is, or the, you know, can there be one on every street? We don't know any of that yet. So my reasoning for supporting this is for the unknown. It can be addressed, it can be changed as things come into place that we like or don't like.
Please.
Mayor, I would like to offer up an amendment to this, removing the emergency clause. That way it'll allow not only this reading, but follow-on readings and further discussion with the public.
You know, I'd like to add one other thing. It's not just,
Don't we need to vote on the
I'm sorry.
amendment?
So, we have a motion to amend, the ordinance to remove the word emergency from the title of the ordinance, and also to remove, I believe, section 3 from the ordinance, which is the emergency clause.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
That would be Mr. Rufner and Mr. Axiotis. So now we need a vote on the amendment. Your permission.
please.
Ms. Persino?
Yes.
Mr. Rufner?
Yes.
Mr. Axiotis?
Yes.
Ms. Benitez?
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert?
Yes.
Pass 5-0. 2024-27 is amended. Next would be any further discussion, and then a possible vote on it as amended.
Can I just, real quick,
Yes, please.
I would just like to ask with the amendment, can we have, it'll be on the next agenda, so people have time to weigh in on it, so never mind, forget that. They can talk about next meeting if we have it that way.
Right.
May I address council for a moment? One of the other things with these head shops, or whatever you want to call them, is what they call botanicals, which is kratom, kava, and God only knows what else is coming up the pike. They're unregulated. We don't know anything about them. You know, this society has had 30, 50, 70 years experience with cannabis products, but these other, what they're calling botanicals, we have no background on them, and we really don't know who's making them or what's in them. They're not regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, and it's marketed as feel-good, pain relief, and other things. And my background in drugs and pharmaceuticals is you can't make a generic Tylenol or aspirin or anything like that if it's not regulated by the FDA. And there's a lot of dangerous things that are coming through there. These things can cause seizures, death, everything else. I think council needs to take a real hard look at what's coming through these stores. Now, it's the United States of America. And, you know, we've taken a vow to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, but also we have the right to defend and protect our citizens, even if we have to put a boot on someone's throat to stop them from harming children or citizens. So that's all I got to say. I'll put my soapbox down now.
I think we need a motion to pass it as amended.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Be Ms. Benitez and Ms. Persino. Any further discussion? Ms. Stimpert,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Mr. Exiotis,
No.
and Ms. Benitez.
Yes.
Pass 4-1.
Next, we have a motion that's sponsored by councilpersons Rufner, Stempert, Racino. This is a motion authorizing the city manager to donate $500 to the Eagle Creek Conservation Club to go towards stocking Community Pond for the 2024 annual Youth Fishing Derby, and that's going to be held June 2nd, 2024.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Benitez and Mr. Rufner.
Discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Brian, please.
I did have a concern about the money spent. I mean, I know it's a donation, but it is spending money, and typically anything pro charter when it relates to money has to be done by ordinance. I don't know how it's done historically, and I wish Jeff was here to maybe ask, but I have a little bit of concern that we're doing it by motion.
Please,
If I may, this is well within the city manager's $10,000 spending limit and is no different from previous actions of previous administrators putting on movie nights, putting on senior kitchen, stuff of that nature. So there was no legal issue with it then. I foresee no legal issue with it now. It's well within the rights and limits of the city manager. So that's why I made the motion as I did.
Ms. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Exiotis,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Ms. Stempert.
Yes.
Pass 5-0.
Mr. Lovely, I'll also get you the individual's name that'll come up.
Yes, thank you.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on into the public comments. We have 3 minutes.
EB 50 West Ninth Street. I just have a couple questions. Any update on Dunkin'? Or did we spend all that money for nothing? Are we getting a Dunkin' Donuts? Anybody? And are we still paying Gene Fixler's salary? And if we are, can we allow the poor man to retire and quit paying his salary? Those are just questions I want to know. Thank you.
Jim Lawanwansu, 10 East Liberty. Before I tell you what I wanted to say, Julie, you tried to answer my question, but you didn't quite get the whole gist of it, or Mike, you didn't get the gist of it. I understand the software in this building is working. My question was, are the meters sending the information to this building like they were supposed to? That's what the contract said they were supposed to do. Obviously, I don't believe they are, or our utility guys would not be walking around reading meters, because that's why we eliminated meter reading jobs. That's what the question was, just to clarify. And I'm okay with that. You can answer it next time, whenever. What I really wanted to tell you was that I'm sure you've all seen on my Facebook post, on Newton Falls pages, and today's Tribune article, very close family friends of ours, Frankie Placanica, an 8th grader at Lakeview High School, suffered a very traumatic brain injury last Friday during track practice. Discus was thrown by another player and struck him in the head. He was revived on the field and life-flighted to Akron Children's Hospital, and he will be there probably for a long time. In speaking to his mom, he did speak some words on Monday, and he was able to take some nutrition in by mouth. What I really want to thank you all for is that within a few minutes of that happening and me finding out, I put on that I wanted to get a hold of Mrs. Rankin at the school, and there were about a dozen people who gave me her email. And Mrs. Rankin made it post by Sunday morning on the Exempted Village website that the Village of Newton Falls was supporting the Lakeview school system and Frankie and his parents with the hashtag FrankieStrong. And then I thought about the water tower, and we use it for so many different things. And I called Councilwoman Stimpert, and I just said, do you think it's possible to do this? And she made one phone call to Acting City Manager Mike Novotny, and by Monday night, it was lit up blue for Frankie. And I have to tell you that his mother and his sisters and his cousins all made contact, and they were all crying because I sent the picture that I took, which was the one that I put on Facebook, where downtown with the flags and the water tower in the background. And I had Dustin Beach, and you're all familiar with his work, and he came out for free, and he took his drone and took some professional pictures, and I'm gonna have those put on frames and sent to the family. And Mike, I'm also gonna have some put on some poster board that you can keep here at City Hall, because I appreciate council supporting that. I appreciate your efforts, and Julie, your efforts. And I just ask that you all remember him in your prayers, because it's going to be a long, long battle. And if anyone has any ideas for some fundraisers to help this family, or anybody reaches out to you with any ideas, you're welcome to give them my number. Most all of you have it, or my contact information. And you'll probably hear more about this throughout the summer, because I have a feeling he's probably going to spend the summer at Akron Children's Hospital. So I appreciate everything you did, Council, in letting that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Julie Lemon, 609 Ridge Road. Thank you for explaining your end of it, and then I appreciate Mayor Hansen's comments as well. I can, like, again, I said, I can see both sides of it. I just want to comment on the community activity ad hoc committee. I think we've gotten off to a really good start. Our first two events went off pretty good. Good leadership. And I just want to say, like, Jim, my daughter she's a Newton Falls junior getting ready to graduate next year. She can't wait, and neither can I. But when Newton Falls surrounded her when she was in a car accident back in 2016, and in the words of Brian Axiotis' son, we all in the class miss you. But she has a traumatic brain injury as well. And when Jim says that it's a long road, it's no joke. So I think whatever the community can do to help support this young man, any funds we can raise, anything that we can do, his family is going to need it. Now, in our case, our town surrounded me, my husband, and my daughter with so much love. I had to walk out from the fundraiser multiple times to cry because my hometown came to our aid. This young man will have a long road. I'm guessing recovery, probably long stay in the Ronald McDonald House for extensive rehab. So whatever we can do to get behind him, I would like to see that happen as a community. I don't know if community ad hocs can help work on it or whatever, but those are things we need to work on and whatever we can do to help this young man.
Anyone else like to?
Rick Curlin, 1009 Wood Glen. I have some questions concerning a court case that was finalized supposedly, and Judge Rice was the judge. And the interim city manager and the law director signed off on that. They can't do that unless they are directed by the legislature to do that. There were some changes in the contract, the original contract, which could have been done by the five of you, by ordinance. It takes an ordinance to get rid of an ordinance, and there is an ordinance right now. But there have been some changes in what the interim said and the law director said, agreed to. They don't have that authority. Only you have that authority. And the way that's got to be done is an ordinance. Can't be done by a motion, can't be done by a resolution, can only be done by an ordinance. And our ordinances are pretty clear on that. We have something that is something that most places don't have, and that is, in addition to such acts as council is required by statute or by this charter to be by ordinance, every act of council establishing a fine or other penalty or authorizing the borrowing of money or granting a franchise or to sell or lease, rent real estate, or to create, abolish, or recognize any departments, or to fix compensation, shall be by ordinance. Council must authorize the expenditure of funds unless the expenditure is authorized in a budget adopted by council in an open meeting. That was not done. Not at all. That's what it says in our charter, and that should have been done. There was no authority. If that has changed the original contract that they wanted to say was okay. It's changed it. The contract also reads that we have with Heritage Accord that we're supposed to, in 15 days, tenant shall cause the premises to be insured against loss or damage under the policy or policies of fire and extended coverage insurance, including additional perils. They don't have insurance that I know of so far. The city does. And by the city doing that, they're spending money. And it should have been done by ordinance. It's what the charter says. Only you have the power to spend the money. The city manager doesn't. He can't go into a court case. You never held anything in open court or executive session that I was here and saw to say that anybody could do anything. Certainly the law director can't do it. He can say, you can make a motion and tell him to settle. You can do that with no problem. You're in charge of the money.
Thank you, Mr. Curlin.
But it needs a new ordinance because you're changing it. Thank you.
All right, closing remarks. I said my piece. So I'm going to turn it over to council members. Mr. Axiotis?
I just want to reiterate on ordinance 2024-27, your comments about botanicals. That's not exclusive to a head shop. There is no regulation on botanicals. They could easily be sold at all the smoke shops that already exist in town. Passing this will change nothing. I still feel that by outlawing legal weed, all you've done is kept illegal weed in your neighborhoods. You've given people no option. You're not going to drive to some other city to purchase weed. You're just continue to buy it from your neighbors. You're defeating the whole idea of legal weed. Thank you.
Ms. Pat?
We're having a police levy, police support or whatever meeting tomorrow. Anybody's invited to attend.
Thank you. Ms. Julie, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
Ms. Brandon?
Yeah, piggyback off of Mrs. Benitez, there's a police committee meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. here. Everybody is welcome to attend. That's all I got.
It was quick.
It was quick.
Mr. Roofer, you have anything?
Just real quick, this Friday's late night in the falls, so businesses, some of them will be staying open a little later. Depending on the weather, what the weather looks like, if you get an opportunity, come out, meet some of the neighbors, talk to some of the people in the community, get out and basically get to know those around us. So it's always a good time. Don't know the full lineup of what they've got planned, but there's always something going on uptown. So whether it's live music or just sitting at the table drinking a cup of coffee, BSing with the neighbors. Come on out and enjoy it. And as stated, the fishing derby, granted it's a month out, but make sure you're aware of it. It's June 2nd. So I believe in the past, registration or signups is like 10 o'clock and they start fishing at noon, something of that. If I get different, I'll update that, but plan ahead, plan accordingly. Always a great time, bring the kids out. So that's all I've got.
Mike, speak if you'd like to.
Mike, anything from you?
Just real quick, I guess I'll try and answer a couple of the questions. Yes, the meters that are installed are sending the data. There's still a number of meters that are not installed, so that's why you're still seeing meter readers out. Actually, we are down to just one person reading meters. So once the installation's complete, then you'll see that go away. Dunkin' Donuts, yes. Dunkin' Donuts is coming. You should be seeing, I believe in the next couple weeks, week or so, they'll be applying for all their permits and everything like that. You'll be seeing construction very soon out there on the Dunkin' Donuts.
Ready?
Motion to adjourn first.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Stimpert. Second
I'll
is
second.
Mr. Axiotis. And Mr. Axiotis,
Yes.
Ms. Persino,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner,
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert,
Yes.
Ms. Benitez.
Yes.
7 o'clock.
Thank you, folks, for coming out.
Yes, please.